All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Beauty Landlord podcast. Today, we are talking to Lisa with Milestone Franchising. And today, we're going to talk about growth and what that looks like or what that could potentially look like for your salon suite business. Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Hello, Carlene. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to speak with you and just because there's so many, we'll talk about that like later on our thoughts about the salon suite industry. But just tell me a little bit about your journey. What got you into consulting? I know you don't just do salon suites, you do other consulting for other franchises. So just tell me a little bit just what got you into the franchising, consulting in the franchising world.
Sure. Well, thank you very much again. So, I've been in the franchise world for over 10 years, and I was a franchise owner of a concept. And I was one of the first adopters into my franchise. And when that happens, you kind of are all swimming along, just trying to figure it out. And so I then helped to coach and mentor people that were coming on board behind, after me and helping to build the franchise up across the country. And I watched people come in and fall flat on their face. And that really disturbed me. Like I was very bothered. They were smarter than me. And I was like, why would they fail? And I started seeing commonalities that I said, I think one day I'm going to start a consultancy and advise people and help them from making a big mistake. And so 4 years ago, it's coming on 4 years already. I cannot believe it. Milestone Franchising was born out of a wanting to help people because franchising tends to be a very murky space for many. They don't understand it. They know very little, and they end up searching around on the internet, and that can be a big concern. And so helping people to educate them about what this space is, and more importantly what it's not, is really important for me as I advise people across the country.
Yeah, I love that because I remember years ago, I was just interested in franchising. I think I went to a trade show and I was so overwhelmed. I was I don't know what's going on. There was just so many people. And I was I just can't. I just cannot do this. And I just never thought about it again. Just from being at a trade shows is usually most trade shows you get inspired. I was not inspired. I was
Overwhelmed. Yeah.
overwhelmed. I was get me out of here now. I don't want to do this. This is not my lane.
Yeah.
So I definitely, if I knew there was coaching or consultants, I probably would have went down the road a little bit more. I mean, at the time, I mean, we Google everything now. At the time, I don't think we were Googling as much, too, when I was looking into it. Now, I'm every little thing I Google, I'm hey, I'm not gonna say it right now because my thing will go off. I even have it the assistant in my house. But yeah,
Right.
that's awesome. But definitely, and I see a lot. Do you see a lot more franchises popping up now? Do you think people
There are consistently new franchises. I represent 500 of 4,000 franchises that are out there. And so every day there's new concepts that come into my inventory, and I'm like, oh, great, I have to learn about a new one. But that's why you want someone when you're trying to explore this space. I'm living and breathing this all day long,
yeah,
every day, right? And not only that, I see the good and the bad and the ugly on the other side, on the behind the scenes side. And I'm in masterminds with other consultants, and we all talk about what we're seeing. And so, that's I sit there exactly to your point when someone's just trying to figure this out. If I go on Amazon and I just ordered pencils for drawing for my son. And
yeah,
if you read the reviews, half of the reviews will say it's the worst thing ever. And
yeah,
then half the reviews say it's the best thing ever. And that's for pencils that cost $7,
yeah,
let alone trying to figure out how to own a business in the franchise space. And people don't pay me a cent for my services. So that's the other thing. I'm like, you don't pay me for this. I
Yeah.
get compensated by the system if someone ends up going down that road. And this is not a pushy car salesy
Yeah.
space. This is just educating. And if they come to the point that they go, no, not for me, I just did my job, right? I
Yeah.
did my job and help them to understand and get to that point safely and land safely of no, not for me, but thank you so much.
Yeah. That's good. So the franchisors, right, hire you to now onboard. That's like a part of like that onboarding process for the franchisees.
So they're not hiring me per se. You could think of it like an executive recruiter.
Mm,
So I represent 500 concepts. They're in my inventory. I belong to a broker network called the International Franchise Professionals Group. And so they have paid to be a member in this broker network. And that's how I have, this access to them. And then I'm matchmaking. I have a series of questions and I listen and then I poke and I probe. And then I come to the point of narrowing that 500 down to just a handful, then present those to my client. And then at the end say, do you want to meet with any of them? And yeah, I'd like to meet them. And then I'm making that introduction. Then after that, I continue meeting with them
yeah.
to stay with them. And what are you hearing? What do you like? What do you not like? And then helping them through the process so they can understand what's coming next all the way through. So they're not just kind of blindly trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, I mean, we'll talk about that too, like just finding the right franchise for your friend, because that's super important because your whole point of this is to grow. Growth. If the franchises are failing, you're not growing.
You're not growing. And that's exactly correct. And there is good, bad, and ugly in every industry, and franchising is no exception. And you have some bad players out there, bad advisors that are just trying to throw whatever at anybody and they don't care where it lands. And if it works out, you've got some not great franchises out there that, when you dig deep, a little bit deeper underneath the surface, it's not pretty. But
Yeah.
then there's amazing concepts and amazing business owners. There's 750,000 units out there of people running franchises. So it is a phenomenal business model when it's done right. And then, yes, you have that growth to succeed.
I love that. All right. So many beauty landlords are looking to expand their salon suite business. Well, we kind of talked about, like, can you explain how franchising can be a powerful growth strategy, and what are some critical considerations landlords should make before diving in?
So thank you for that. So I help people that want to get into franchising, and then I also help people that want to franchise their business. So they've got a business and it's been running along and it's doing well. And they're like, well, what's my next way to grow? Right? What's my next thing? Do I open up another location? Okay, well, now they've opened up another location and it's on the other side of town and that's going well. And they're like, well, what's that next step? And oftentimes franchising comes up because that is a way for you to grow this business and replicate it literally across the country. And then if you're so lucky, international, right? Like you then have international reach. And so what does that look like? I always tell people, you have to be in business for a few years, profitable. That's key, profitable.
When we say profitable, can I ask this question? Like, is there like a profit margin too?
Yes.
Also needs to like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So when
You
people say
want to
profit, are we
be,
profitable by like $1? Are we profitable by like, what is the margin?
no, great question. You want to be profitable, that you've got a profit margin that's probably around 30% or more. Because if you now are considered as a franchise, your franchisees have to pay you a royalty. And so you've got to cut that piece off of it. So now maybe they're looking at a profitability of around 20, 22%, which, just to put it into perspective, a quick service restaurant, your quick fast food restaurants, they're like 10 to 12%. So anything that's above that is really great. So I always like anything that's above that 20% mark because that's just, that's a really strong number. So profitable, you're paying yourself, you're not working in the business, you're not the beauty pro,
Yeah.
you're working on strategizing that business now. Because if you decide to franchise your business, you don't have time for sitting there and doing whatever it is that is in the business, right? So there's lots of things to consider. Is your name trademarked? This is a big one that stops a lot of my clients in their tracks because their name is not trademarked. And then when they do a trademark search with a trademark attorney, and I have great, wonderful trademark attorney that I work with, and then she discovers, no, you can't use this. Well,
Yeah.
you built your whole brand on something that you cannot sit there and replicate based upon that. So now you have to make that choice of, do I rebrand and start all over, or do I just keep doing my business the way it is and just be happy, right? So there's lots, and that's just a few little steps to
Yeah.
many, many more steps of consideration to becoming a franchise.
Wow. I'm just like thinking rebranding. It's like, I mean, is it so bad to rebrand? I mean, you're
Not necessarily. I mean, it's better to do it before you have now 7 locations
okay.
and
Yeah.
you've been in business for 12 years.
Yeah.
The longer you've been in business, then that rebranding hurts.
Yeah.
It can really hurt because people are like, well, what happened? Where'd they go? And we have an attention span as consumers that is
Yeah.
not, we don't know what's happening from one moment to the next.
And
So
then I
having
guess
a
the
rebrand,
credibility too, right? Like like, are they failing? And then you put
right?
the negative
Yes.
mindset towards it, and you're like, no, we just need to trademark.
We're resetting. We have to trademark. We didn't do our proper due diligence from the beginning,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's funny.
And then you've got to sit there, and that trademarking process can take 8 months to a year. Like it can take a while.
Yeah, it was definitely in the process of trademarking beauty landlord because I use it a lot, and I'm having such like a hard time trademarking it just because I don't know, maybe in a year I could do it. I'll try again. They were like trying to have me jump through hoops, and I was like, I'm gonna wait, let me use it more. But it's not easy. It's not an easy
Easy.
thing at all. I was like, what do you mean I can't do it? What do you mean they're sending me a letter and asking for more? Like, what? Like, I made this up. Like, so I definitely understand that. All right. So, let's see, next question. So we talked a little bit about this. The success of any franchise is to make sure that they have amazing franchisees. So for the salon suite, like what are some qualities a beauty landlord should prioritize when searching for potential franchisees, especially those with, should they look for people that have salon background or no?
Not
You're
needed.
like, no. Okay.
No, really the salon suite, and for your audience that, I mean, they should know what a salon suite is because they're following you and they're listening to you each time. But in case someone's brand new listening, a salon suite is this, it's in a strip mall, class A strip mall. It's, 30 mini off little office space type, pods, and the beauty professional now has their own business. Instead of renting a chair somewhere, they're now in their own business with their own name on the door. They get to come and go as they want, make their own hours, and it can be any kind of beauty professional, which is what's even better about it. It's not limited, it can be anything. So the salon suite concept is really a real estate play. That's really what it is. They're a landlord. That's what it is. And that's why your software is, Beauty Landlord, that, it goes right hand in hand, that you're finding these beauty professionals that want to come in. They want to have their own business and make their own way. And they're going to rent a space from you, and you're going to have a lease. And then at the end of the lease, you either re-up your lease or you decide that you want to go somewhere else, or you are not making it as a business owner and now you got to go back to renting a chair, whatever it is, but you're renting space. So that landlord, which is the franchisee, they're working to make sure that they've got really good beauty professionals that come on board, and all salon suites are not created equal. There are some salon suites that don't require you to have a book of business. Then there are others that are much more upscale that require you to have a big book of business before they bring you in, because they don't want it to be a revolving door. So, it all depends on what the salon suite concept looks like.
Yeah.
And then, some of the salon suite owners, not all, but some, they'll actually mentor the beauty pros and help them out and, be there as like a guide for them. But that's not an expectation, but it is something that could be an added value when someone's looking to go into a salon suite
Yeah,
concept.
I agree with that because some of my clients, my beauty landlords, I offer coaching for their beauty pros because I know how important it is. And plus, I want them to get their rent paid.
Mhm.
Like
That's
I want
right.
for rent to be paid. So if I can help in any way get that rent paid, why not? I've been in the beauty industry for 17 years, owning my own spa, building the top medical spas in New York City. Like I was a lash artist. I've held every position. So I kind of have like a unique understanding of how to grow a business. It's a little bit, you know,
Yeah, just a smidge.
smidge. So I'm like, okay, I could do this. Like, if I could help, why not? That's a part of my North Star too. Like my mission, just helping beauty professionals, whether you're the beauty landlord, the beauty tenant, just have sustainable careers. So I love that. I love like the different tiers, like the way you put it of the different types of franchise. Are you someone that's just looking for people who just came out of school, or you're like more you're stricter in
Right.
your process of finding the right tenant? And I think with Spabilaty, we want the landlords to be go on the stricter side. We want them to make sure that this person has insurance, that this person has a license that's this, that is not expired. The little things that we don't think about. And I've talked to people who have 10 locations. They're like, wow, I don't even ask these questions. And I'm like, how did you go to 10 locations? Like, how did this happen? But you know what? The crazier things happen in the world. So,
Right.
and I'm just like,
It's a lot of moving parts,
yeah,
and you got to stay on top of it. And I know for the salon suite that I go to regularly, the owner has one of the beauty pros is his eyes and ears in the salon suite. So if something goes wrong, he's not hearing it from 30 tenants. He
yeah,
just hears it from her, and they communicate and converse with one another on a regular basis. And she does other things. I think she helps to identify, like she goes through the list with him for the applications. She does some of the pre-screening. So, that's another suggestion for people when they're coming into this.
and this reminded me, I don't know why I was thinking of a show, but just like an apartment building, the apartment manager, they live there.
Right.
They
That's
live
right.
in the apartment and in the building, and then but they also help manage it because they're also living there and they're also experiencing it themselves. So that's a good tip for you beauty landlords out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And give them a break on their rent or give them a stipend each month, but
yes,
identify your strongest person who's
yeah,
there, who's consistent, who, everyone knows who that person is, and then that's your go-to for anything that's going on.
yeah. All right. So the next session, we kind of talked about this a little earlier, but before we go and record, but franchising and licensing. I've heard some beauty landlords talk about licensing their business. Is this something that you can do? Is it something that you should do? And yeah, like, and then why would someone even choose licensing over franchising, or franchising versus licensing? Yeah.
So it's a very fine line, licensing your business versus franchising it. And I strongly recommend that a business talk to a business attorney when they're thinking about doing this, about licensing it, because the Federal Trade Commission oversees the franchise world. And if they think that you are operating like a franchise, then they're going to come right after you, and it will not be pretty. So talk about like what we talked about that step back that got pushed if you've got that trademarking. Well, the same thing where they go, no more, this has to be a franchise, like that's it. And that can cause a lot of issues because your licensees are like, I don't want to be a franchise. Like, no, thank you. And then they all walk away. It can become a bit of a mess. So always talk to a business attorney about licensing and how to stay in your lane. And if it's possible for you to stay in your lane and not get into trouble, and where you start kind of veering on over, right? And really, one of the differences is that with licensing, you cannot tell them what their business name should be. Like, you can't tell them all the things. Like, whereas a franchise, everything is told to you. This is what it looks like. This is how it is. This is the name of it. This is what you can and cannot do. It's very structured. And so the licensing is very loosey-goosey. And so the stronger that you start kind of reining that in, the more you start kind of going on over to that franchise side. So definitely speak to a business attorney.
So business attorney, when you were saying this is what came in my head was, I mean, and this is even attorneys for beauty professionals. Do you know that many attorneys that are specifically for beauty professionals and specifically for the beauty salon suite world?
No, most business attorneys should be able to help you no matter what. Like, they don't have to specialize in, this area or that area. They're general attorneys that help you with the business side. And then their job is to dig down and find out anything that they have to find out. And then they now know, and they're like, okay, yeah, I got this. This is no problem. But they're generalists, just like a franchise attorney. A franchise attorney doesn't know about one specific franchise. They know about all franchising. And then when they get something in the franchise world, there's something called a franchise disclosure document. They then read through that document and then they start picking out things that they're like, oh, if it's a medical concept, and they're not as familiar with medical concepts in the franchise space, then that is their job to go, okay, does this make sense? Does that not make sense? It's not your job as the person that's hiring. It's the attorney's job. So they don't have to be a beauty professional for that.
Well, not professional, but
beauty specialists. They don't have to be specializing in the beauty professional world.
Okay. That's good to know. I think a lot of times people they're not looking to find an attorney because of that. They're like, we want someone who specializes in beauty. We want someone who specializes in. So that's a good point. And I want to touch base too. Of how, well, we'll talk about it too, like how big the salon suite, but just talk about medical. I see a lot of medical practices now going to salon suites.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of dentists are going to salon suites. So that's been interesting too.
Fitness is starting to look into that space as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's definitely
very interesting.
Yeah, it's very.
And by the way, when you're looking, if someone's looking for a business attorney, ask them if they have licensing expertise. That's what matters. That's what matters. Not do they specialize in this area or that industry. Do they have licensing industry experience?
That's pointers.
And then if they want to speak to about becoming a franchise, they could definitely reach out to me for certain. I'm happy to talk to them about that. But then speaking to a franchise attorney that works on the franchisor side, that's really critical, because if they only work on the franchisee side, that's not going to work. So you have to have a franchise attorney that works on the franchisor side.
Yeah. It's like remind us real estate in general, right? Like, you sell your house, you have your own attorney than the person that's buying your house.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So growth, we're talking about a lot of growth of just like how to potentially franchise your business. But I love the salon suite industry. My product is built around it. I love the beauty industry, period. What are your thoughts on the growth of the salon suite industry right now? Do you see that is there more growth that
Oh
can
yeah.
be done?
Oh yeah.
Are we just touching this, the surface of things? Like,
No, it's incredible what's happening out there. There's probably, I think, 8 to 10 salon suite players, and I'm talking big, not little regional ones, like big players that are out there right now. And one of the ones that I represent, they have something like 350 locations across the country. Their goal is to be at 1,000 locations by 2029. So in 5 years, they are looking, and I pushed back on that and I said, is there really that much room for that? And considering that there's all this other competition, they said absolutely, because there's so many beauty professionals and it's going to change the beauty profession. Like, having that big beauty salon that has, 10, 15 chairs in it, it's kind of maybe going to go away, not completely, but
yeah,
it's definitely going to be going in a different direction, because people really like that one-on-one. They
yeah,
like that one-on-one. I know for me, I love that one-on-one concept. I go to my manicurist, it's that one-on-one. I really enjoy it. And I think that that's the way that things are going. And the beauty professionals love it because they're not renting a chair, they're owning a business. So they're now getting experience in business ownership for real. And more importantly, a lot of beauty professionals, not all, are moms. And so they can work on that work-life balance and set their own schedule instead of being told, if you're not here, if you don't work these hours, like you're out of here.
yeah,
And I think because of the pandemic and that whole shift in that work-life balance that everyone is struggling to maintain coming through the pandemic, I think that's why this match was lit
yeah.
on this concept that this gives people that autonomy that they so want. So yeah, there is tremendous growth and possibilities with these suites because like you said, it's now spreading to other industries.
Yes, it definitely is. And I mean, I knew this, of course I know this is a thing that's going to happen. I know that, there's been private equity that are buying up these franchises that are now like again, their goal to open up 1,000 by you said two I don't even
2029.
2029. Like
That's just one concept.
one. I know people who want to open up another 10 in like the next year and I'm just like, "Whoa." And like when I hear that number I'm like, "Whoa." So that's 600 plus locations. That's like insane, like but I worry for the little people, right? The smaller ones. That's why I also built Spabilaty because I'm like, whether you have one unit or booth, like you should be able to grow. You should be able to compete a little bit, right? Like just try, and the only way to compete is to have better systems in place.
Right.
That's
And listen, everything changes. Look at the travel industry.
yeah,
Travel got turned upside down. The book industry got turned upside down. If you don't adapt and change to the way that things are going, then you become extinct.
yeah,
So, and that this is the way the beauty professionals are saying, this is what we want. And not all beauty professionals are going to flourish in that kind of setting. They're just not. And so that's where they're going to go back to the chair rental space because they can't do it on their own. Like they just don't have that capability and they don't like it. And they like the chatter with everyone else around them. And, so you're going to have that mix of both, but
yeah,
it's definitely, you can see that this is a wave that is not turning backward.
yeah. I hope people see that. I think they see it, but I don't think they realize how big it can be. I don't think they realize the growth that can happen, or they just don't realize growth, period, and what
Mhm.
that looks like. All right,
Well,
so
it's a narrow focus, and sometimes
yeah,
you're so stuck in your area and you can't see that bigger picture.
yeah. And this exactly, these are your competitors, right? So you have to see what they're doing, why they're doing it. All right. So 3 tips for a franchising beauty landlord that you would give if they're just interested in potentially franchising their salon suite business.
Okay, so we talked about the trademarking. That's going to be number one. Profitability, number two. Operating, your operating guidelines of your business. So if something were to happen to you as an owner,
Mm,
does your business just dwindle and disappear because you don't have any of your processes put into place? So
yeah.
you want everything documented and you want everything really spelled out well, because the idea of someone coming in to buy a franchise is that they can come in and be given this recipe of how to do this.
Yeah.
And if there's no playbook, right, then they're just, what did they buy into? So if someone has this inkling that they want to become a franchise, then they've got to start putting all this down into an operating manual, right? And there are franchise development companies out there, and this is where I'm happy to help anyone that's listening about this. There's good, bad, and ugly franchise development companies out there, and I can help so that identify who's good, who's not, why they're good, why they're not. And you also have to have good money on hand to sit there and franchise your business. It is not inexpensive. It is a investment in your business, because people often make the mistake. They become a franchise and then they're out of money. And then they're like, but I'm a franchise. Why isn't everyone coming to own my business?
Yeah.
Because you're out of money from marketing and getting this business out there, and you didn't understand that that's what you needed. So that's why I like to be a guide for people that want to become a franchise, to help set them up properly and plan and say, listen, so maybe you're not ready right now. You can start right now and then have a plan in 2 years that you want to become a franchise. Fine, no problem. But at least now you're aware of it, because people say, well, it's too early for me to think about this. I'm like, no, the moment you have a business and the moment that you even have a glimmer or thought that this is something that could work across the country, that's when you need to start thinking about it. So I'm happy to speak to people and talk to them about that.
Yeah, I love that. I love because I think when you become a franchisor, you're you become you're selling you're marketing your franchise now. You're not marketing the business,
That's correct.
So we're so used to marketing the business, to tenants, the persona that you're speaking to now changes.
That's right.
And I think that too, people are like, don't realize that part. They're like, oh, I have a franchise. Why aren't people coming? No, you have to now position all your marketing now to a different persona,
A different area.
a whole different area that you didn't even think about before. You're not focusing on getting tenants. You're focusing on getting people to buy into your business. So yeah, I like
And
that.
having your numbers, like knowing your numbers and what's your retention rate. And the stronger your retention rate is, if your retention rate is 55% annual, nobody's going to want to buy into that, because
Yeah.
that's terrifying. Like, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to be sitting there going, well, how am I going to do that? You want to have a retention rate well over 85%, annual.
Yeah, I love that.
So you want to have a strong, shored up business model. And that's what you're selling to other people. That's your why. And also, what's your differentiator? Oh, I could go on and on with you about this, Carlene. Like,
Uh,
what's your differentiator against your competition? And so how are you going to set yourself out? And why do you want, if I'm looking at buying a franchise, why am I buying your concept as opposed to that concept? So that's all the kind of stuff that I advise people about.
yeah, being different. I mean, being in tech, trying to raise capital in tech, that's like the number one question to ask. How are you different from your competitors? Like, and it's something that, like, as a founder, you think, but you really need to like write that down, like what truly makes us different. You really have to study the competition, understand what they're doing, why you're special. So I definitely so understand that. So all right, where can people connect with you? Where they find you? You have the QR code. That's smart. Hit scan the QR code, right?
They can scan the QR code and everything. All of my social media is at milestonefranchising.com. So everything you can find me literally anywhere except for TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm most everywhere else. And and I'm always happy to have conversations with people. I'm very passionate about this industry. If that has not come across, I pride myself on being an advocate in this industry and helping people to just do their best and succeed. And and that's it. Like, you don't want to see people come into something and not do well like that. Who wants that? Nobody wants that. You want
Yeah.
everyone to succeed. And some business owners should not be a franchise. Just like some people should not become a business owner, not every business owner should become a franchise. So really understanding that and helping people to get through that and, and understand and navigate through it, that's really what I'm here for.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I learned a lot, in this, I'm just sitting here like, oh, wow, like, I got so many gems. So thank you so much, to all the beauty landlords that want to eventually franchise. I, that was the one gem I got. Like, it's okay that you might not become a franchise. Just continue, build those strategies. And I think you'll always be successful regardless. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Carlene, and good luck with you with Spabilaty. And I hope everyone's listening that they should be working with you and your software.
Thank you.